I have an idea. Let us paint some dead killy robots. Greetings, Chromatic Warriors! Welcome to a special Crumpin' edition. Something's wrong. That's better! Where's me chopper? Alright, now we're ready to paint some cans. So recently, put that down so I don't kill myself, the Ork Codex was released. Ba-boom. I'm a big fan of the orcs. I used to have an army and I sold it for money, but I needed the money. So these days, upon the release of the new codex, has me thinking, what if I were to make yet another army? I don't want to paint up 200 boys, not today at least, but possibly I can feed my appetite with some killy cans. I like the Dread mob detachment, the looks of all these stompy robots. I can get very orky on the battlefield and maybe only have to paint like 60 or 70 models. It's all fantasy. But it all starts with a recipe, so today I'm going to cover my recipe for painting up these 3 kickin' cans. I hope you've brought your airbrush, but I think the paintbrush will serve you just fine as well if you follow along. After all, a rough result is an orky result. So first of all, I'm giving it an all-over base coat of Unforgiven green. Lay it on nice and thick so you get a hefty coat of this deep green. Once that is all dry and in place, I'm going to come in with some Husk brown. This is a nice rusty brown, and my idea is to sort of undercoat the rusty tones and bring them alongside the rest of the paint job. I'll be finishing with rust, but let's start with some rusty roots. With those in place, it was time for a little Militia green, if you know what I mean. Honestly, I just wanted to rhyme right there. But spraying down some Militia green, catching the highlights, just paying attention to mostly the zenithal overhead light source, a little bit from the face-forward projection as well. Next up, you're going to have to do some mixing. I'm going to take necrotic flesh, and it was a little too abrupt, so just putting in 1 drop of Militia green. So we've got 1/4 Militia green and 3 parts necrotic flesh for the final highlight on the green. That gives me a nice military green fitting for the Blood Axes, which is the clan I'm going to go with this time around. In order to bond all of those airbrushed colors together, I'm going to take some Camo Cloak from the Speedpaint range and dilute it down considerably with the Speedpaint medium. These Speedpaints carry a lot of pigment, so you don't need so much. You can add water to thin it down, but at this level of dilution, I find the Speedpaint medium works better. I'm operating about a 10-to-1. It's all mixing in art anyways, but small portion of the Camo Cloak and a large portion of the Speedpaint medium. Not bad. We've got a nice foundation. Now it's time to pick out some of those micro details. So I have a lot of little orky designs and glyphs present on the can. And I'll pick those out with Gray Castle. This sits nicely, being a light color sat among the dark greens. Once a healthy layer is built, I'll wet blend Gray Castle with Worn Stone towards the center. Again, picking up on a little bit of that face-forward light sourcing. You know, they are cylindrical like a can, so there's going to be a lot of light catching on the belly area. So think about it like that. That's where I'm targeting my gentle highlights. Secondary, but still orky details were picked out with Dragon Red mixed with a little bit of black. Just going for a kind of a deep sanguine red color. Then, highlighted centrally, just like the gray jaw plate, with pure Dragon Red, just guiding things towards the middle, ever so slightly. For the metals, cogs, pistons, and sprockets, that was hard to say, I had to do multiple takes. Gunmetal was applied. Take your time here, there are many small bolts and springs that will add to the micro detail. Picking out individual rivets and all of that, now we're getting a little bit smaller, and true metallic metals are very easy. I'll also use some true copper to further break things up, picking out certain areas, a little bit of these kind of blast plates and some of the exhaust pipes. It looks good, just mixing a little bit of a warm metal in with that silver. At this point, I'm not sure if it's laziness or just the appreciation of a nice limited palette. We have certain power cables running around this beast, and I'm going to mix up a nice deep gray, but just taking from the colors already on my palette. I'll take Gray Castle, combine that with black until I'm satisfied with the tone, pick out all them tubes. There are other tubes with a different texture as well. Some of them are ribbed. So on those ribbed tubes, I'll be using Deep Ocean Blue. It's a nice subtlety, but when you get close, you'll notice the difference. Micro detail. Okay, back to the airbrush. Didn't see that one coming, did you? I want to add some unifying black shadows, enhancing the blends and the gubbins and knocking back the metallics with opaque paint. This will add more dimension, of course. I'm a big fan of unifying shadows lately, but also, in the case of the silvers, it's going to give the washes something to cling on to. And just the wash that was needed, well, that's a bit of a custom job. I wanted a nice gun grease tone, so I got out some Grim Black and also Satchel Brown. I stirred those together with some Speedpaint medium until it was thin enough. About 50-50, probably a little heavier on the Speedpaint medium. Again, I'm just mixing and looking. If it goes on too thick, I'll add a little bit more medium. You know, this is something that's done to your own level of satisfaction, but I'll drop that wash all over all of the metallics. For the viewing slit, over a white base coat, I'll combine some demonic yellow and angelic red. I don't want this to drop down into a great depth of shadow, so I'm happy with the angelic red, kind of a warm, kind of orangey red tone, being the greatest depth. And just wet blending that in with the demonic yellow, having to dilute and layer a little bit until it's a nice smooth transition. Once that's capped off though, I'll just combine some white into the demonic yellow and keep highlighting that brightest corner, illuminating that lower edge. Very nice. Make sure to apply a few layers at this point. You want a nice saturated result. The airbrush I can kind of spray, you know, I'm going for a bit of diffusion. That looks nice, but now this is your striking spot color to stand out and illuminate some of the techie bits. You know, we want to make it seem as if the inside is powered and the exterior is a calloused shell, much like many of us. Guess what though? All of your washes are dry. I'm going to be dry brushing all of the techie bits with some Mithril. I like the kind of chopped up, indented nature. I like what the dry brushing gives me, the texture of it all. I have a smaller brush available. There are some edges that I really want to grab and pick out, but yeah, for the most part, looking banged up, having that texture, I like that. Now everything is sitting beneath some washes. Sure, we've highlighted things a little bit with some blending. We've dry brushed on the Mithril, but I have all these little gubbins to pick out. Everything's been airbrushed. Yeah, let's do a little bit of edge highlighting. First, for any of the red bits, I'm going to go to the Angelic Red and start picking out the edges, mainly the edges, but also adding some small snags. I don't want to go crazy sponging chipped damage onto these. I decided to leave that off, and I'll make up for it by just dinging up the corners with tiny slashes. Irregular dots. Pure white for the grayed out symbols on the main chassis, just following the same method again. Your Tony Hawk, right? The edge, that's the curb. Your brush, the trucks. You're just going to skate right along it like a violin bow. Tony Hawk playing the violin. That's how you edge highlight. But the most time-consuming part on the main chassis, Olive Drab capped things off nicely. Take your time and add much damage. This is a very basic paint job. Usually, you know, Ork things are broken up with a variety of colors, but I like, you know, the Blood Axes give me an excuse to make things simple and also kind of fill out this want for a military and, you know, rusted out color scheme. I'm kind of doing chaotic Imperial Guard. Maybe I shouldn't share every single thought that I have. I just want to say it's important to take your time and add as much damage to that big dominant green area. Base! How low can you go? I want you to take some Brigadine brown and wet blend that in with some leather brown. You see, I'm concentrating the leather brown towards the front. I think this gives me a sense of shadow behind the model as well as some momentum. The lighter colors transitioning from the deeper colors are going to create a sense of forward motion that I'm very much into. It'll take a while to dry if you've laid on a thick and hefty amount. A hairdryer can be your friend in this situation. But once it's fully dry, once again, dry brush some leather brown onto that frontal area, kind of carrying it back across the blend. You know, you see the effect. Some of these darker rocks have a very slight highlight. And by the same notion, I'm going to add some Barren Dune to the leather brown and highlight an even smaller area, just edging up right towards the front of the base. And to finish it all up, a nice diluted layer of Satchel brown, keeping a very limited palette. You may want to go back and highlight, it depends on how deep down the Satchel brown tones your base. Honestly, I found afterwards that I wanted just another little pickup. I added some more pure Barren Dune, but didn't record it. It was kind of a second thought and such a minimal thing. Maybe words are enough to just tell you that I did that. Oh, and now we may trust in the rust. Dark rust, fresh rust. Thank you, Army Painter. These new cinematic effects, as I call them, effects paints from the Fanatic line. I love these rusty tones. They carry texture. You can dilute them down so it'll crawl along the crevices. I think it works best in many layers, just like rust accumulates irregularly, even with the same color. Like I did 2 coats of dark rust, 2 coats of the fresh rust. You can see the effect that it has. That beautiful orange is going to pop right out against this cold and dark green. Got this kind of warm and cold combination going, this bright versus dark. Mamma mia, that's a composition. And also, I was convinced by a Hobbit friend, thank you Zambies, to add some snow to the bases, just a slight dusting. I could add a little bit of a gel or a gloss medium around the base of these, maybe later. I'm getting ahead of myself, but I added some winter tuft to the bases from the Army Painter, and then I took some white flock, combined it with white glue, stirred it up about half and half, and just gently placed these little puddles on my base. Makes for a very simple and effective snow. You could tone these out, I could add a little mud to it, but I'll let this evolve if and when I add more models to this army. But for now, just a little touch of snow. I like that. It's springtime in Wisconsin. So my Killa Kans are all painted up. I've got 3, and in my fantasy army list, I think I have 9. As I'm doing my research, it seems like the Dreadnought needs to come down in points. I don't know if I'll paint one of those. Maybe I'll wait. Maybe I'll wait and see. I'll keep painting cans until the Dreadnought becomes good. I could do this slowly, or I could do it very quickly in a weekend. It also costs a lot of money. Thank you for watching this video. I really love orcs. I have fun getting onto them, and it's been cool to... I didn't even notice that, previously I was just painting up these Flames of Orion mechs. Now I'm doing some other mechs, so it's Robot City lately. I hope you enjoyed this video, and I hope it inspires you to create a similar recipe, or maybe just copy your own and add to my Waaagh, our Waaagh. So, cheers. Always feel free to ask questions down below in the comment section. I write back to everybody. Appreciate your support. Until the next time we meet on down that chromatic trail, remain unchained. For the metals, piston, clams, and cockles, for the God damn it. For the God, fuck.